So we're not gonna look here, right?
We can look at the camera for parts of it. We can look at each other for parts of it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, action.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
My name is Cassie.
My name is Vash.
And we are reimagineers.
Actually, it's Quay. I changed it. I'm gonna be Quay in this one.
Should we start over?
Hmm?
Should we start over?
Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3, action. No, don't do that. Don't do that. 1, 2, 3, action. You can do it.
Hi.
No, do the clap.
You told me not to do it.
Just don't do it at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, action.
Hi. My name
Hi.
is Cassie.
My name is Quay.
And we are co-hosting this conversation.
Facts.
We are starting this new channel, these videos. We're calling ourselves the Reimagineers. What that means, where that comes from, is we're trying to combine the two things that we both love doing.
Mm-hmm.
He loves thinking about inner engineering, self-awareness, just growing, one's sense of self.
Yeah.
And their understanding of self. Do you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think you covered it.
And then I'm obsessed with reimagination. And what that basically means is thinking about how our past and our present inform our future, but not just inform, but help us shape and create the futures that we want.
Yeah.
Which is important all the time, but is really important nowadays when things are very uncertain and all over the place. Thinking about how do we create a world where everybody gets to live and thrive and have a really great life. So
Definitely.
that's where we came up with the name, just combining inner engineering, reimagination to make reimagineers. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics that relate to the self and the creation of self and creating a world that we want to live in. The conversation is part of the reimagination, the part of being intentional and being able to create ourselves the way that we want to be. So our first topic that we want to cover is isolation.
Yeah.
Isolation meaning not necessarily like being by yourself alone, like physically by yourself, but also mentally, emotionally by yourself. What that means, how it plays a role in our lives, what it can do for how it functions for us and how it can help other people as well. So why don't we start? You want to tell us, what does isolation mean to you?
Yeah. So isolation isolation means it's kind of reserving oneself, right? Like taking oneself back away from the external world or just from their immediate environment, enough so to be able to focus on a certain thing that they need to be focused on. So I think that that's what isolation means to me, is just to pull back and to refocus from things that might just be too noisy or too much. Because I think you could be in isolation with people that are around you, depending on if they're within the same energy or mental space. But just pulling away from what is distracting you, I think, is isolation.
Yeah.
What does isolation mean to you?
I would say spending time with myself. It's not always been something that I've done, but I think it's really, really important to be able to, spend time by yourself. Make sure that you're being intentional and thoughtful about who you are and how you're being in the world.
Yeah.
I think isolation gives you the space to do that. Like you said, it's pulling back. What kind of a role do you think isolation plays in your life?
I think isolation plays a huge role actually in my life.
Yeah, tell us about it.
I think that I work best alone. I think that I think a lot about the world and different dynamics and different things to the point where having a conversation about that all the time isn't what's best and what's necessary. I think there's a lot of things that go on inside my head that are just hard to articulate, and if I tried, it's just trying to grasp two straws at once. And I feel like if I'm having that conversation with someone, it can get a little bit too muddled down where I can't focus in on what it is that I need to focus in on.
Yeah.
So I think that I actually forgot. See, I'm doing so much inside my head. I even forgot what the question was. What was the question?
What role does isolation play in your life?
Right. So even now, like, isolation is a kind of focusing, right? So I have a lot of noise inside my head. I had to isolate the event in order for me to be able to bring myself back into what it is that we need to talk about. Bringing myself to a place where I don't have any of the distractions or the noises that are around me, such as like friends and family. My family knows me to be someone or a certain person that I am, and having to think about that while I'm dealing with them is kind of hard when I'm trying to
meeting their expectations.
Right, like meeting their expectations, or even the thoughts of thinking that they have expectations around what it is that I need to be. Makes it kind of hard and makes it kind of challenging. And also for my friends, I think that I still have certain dynamics. I don't treat everybody the same, so I think I set myself up to have expectations to be certain ways towards my friends that I can't necessarily be all the time. And I think that in transforming myself, that I've always isolated myself. I feel like even from a kid, I always isolated myself just because of the fact that nobody had time for me. So I had to make time for me. And I think that kind of stemmed farther into my adulthood. So yeah, I think it deals in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think that isolation plays a role in my life more in my adulthood. I think isolation has often scared me, and spending time with myself has scared me before. Not in the sense that like I didn't want to be alone, but in the sense that like I would just like get bored, I guess, being by myself. When I was growing up, I would usually have like the TV on in the background. There were always people around, so I never needed to be by myself. And even when I was by myself, I was always doing something. So like making artwork or writing or doing schoolwork. So I think as I'm an adult, as I'm out of school, as I am learning how to...
We had technical difficulties.
Difficulties. Isolation has not always played a huge role in my life, but it is beginning to play a much bigger role in my life. And I think that's part of me, like, growing into who I am and also who I want to be. That's part of the intentionality of being able to decide who I want to be. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
I feel you. I'm not necessarily sure what the next question was. We have these written down, so
I will tell you.
Yeah.
Do. What are things that you do when you are self-isolating?
What are things that I do?
Yeah, like what does that look like?
Usually, pulling back is number one. I think I don't pull back with friends or family. I think I mostly pull back with you. I think when it comes down to the larger outside people that I deal with, you're one of the people I feel very close and comfortable with having to sort through information that's in my head, even if I need some time to think or voice. I'll express ideas and just different points to you, and I'll tell you like, hey, like I I don't need you to like say anything. I just need to get this off my head really quickly, and you can just passively be listening to what it is I need to say. I think that for when I can't bring that to you and I can't give you all that information, and I just don't feel comfortable because I feel like it's more so word vomiting more than handling the issue, I'll pull back and go on a walk. I pace a lot. It's actually pretty interesting how I'm not pacing right now to have this conversation, but I pace a lot in order to think and process. I talk to myself aloud. So you could probably see me, if you ever watch me walking down the street, just talking to myself, because I talk so much internally that I feel more comfortable talking outside in order to have a more of a discourse with myself. So just thinking things through, like really breaking it down framework by framework, I really get into the nitty gritty when I am talking to myself. I might even bring it to like a dry erase board and really plot out what it is that my head's at and where it is that I'm going. I think that that's something I really do when I isolate. I don't listen to music, or I don't like, I don't know, I don't use something as a medium to get myself out. I really just tunnel in and focus in on what I should be thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What about you? What are some of the things that you do?
I think I'm still learning what my process is. I am around, like, we both work during the work week, so when I'm at work, it's hard to, like, have time to myself. And then we live together, so we're also next to each other most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think I'm learning how to create space even when I'm around other people, to be able to like think through things and question things and like make time for myself. When I get home, I actually think that like when I'm doing creative work, like with my hands, that I don't have to think about things, where I don't have to think about that thing in like a language way. I can like do the thing with my hands and let that guide things. I feel like I do a lot of internal work at that time too. So like if I'm painting, if I'm tufting, if I'm drawing, yes, there's like an engagement with the materials themselves, but there are also like rhythms where I can like just like think back to the questions that I had from the day, or think through something again, that like allows me to still be engaged with something, but also think through the things that I need to think through. I think when I try to format myself in a way where I'm like sitting on the couch doing nothing, or laying in bed doing nothing and just thinking, I can wallow a lot, or I can spiral a lot in ways that like are not super productive, or I get impatient with myself, or like things like that. But I think when I'm able to like you going on walks, like if I can go on a walk, or like be outside, or like have my hands engaged in something at the same time, I can like spend time with myself in that way. And I find it really healing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have any other questions for that, dude. Is there any other questions that are coming up?
Yes. What do you think are the effects of isolation?
The effects of my isolation, or effects of isolation in general?
You can answer however way.
So I think the effects of my isolation is that I get real distant from people, and I think that has that's an effect on me, and I think that also has an effect on everybody else around. I think we're used to habits, and we're used to just expecting certain things from certain people. Like if I call you every day, then I stop calling you every day. I call you every week, I stop calling you every week. I usually talk to you, and when I talk to you, I usually say these things, but now I think differently, so I don't say these things anymore. I think that it's a lot when you are also in survival mode. You know, in survival mode, meaning that you're not focused on thriving. You're not focused on transforming. You're not focused on thinking a different thing. You're not focused on trying to, um, be more than what you already are, or to think further than what you need to think. And I think that a lot of my um, people that are around me are in a survival mode type of state at most of their times, just because of just the culture and the climate that I come around. It's not, living in this world is it's fucking difficult. So I think that when you do have the space to think, you do have the space to transform, it can it's not always like compatible with everybody else. It's not like just because you're changing doesn't mean I'm changing.
Right.
Just because you're going through something doesn't mean I'm going through something. So I think that that can create a sort of separation, separation in conversation, a separation in like community, separation in frequency of conversations. I think that that has the effect outside, but internally, I think that I start to feel estranged. I start to feel estranged from my family and my friends. I start to feel kind of alone. I can box myself in so much to where I can be hyper focused on having these great thoughts or these different transformative thinkings that I need to now be able to figure out how to use this in my everyday, or be able to not dumb it down, but to be able to refocus it in a way that can be just as productive as how can I say this? Make this more, whatever it is I'm transforming it, make it productive for the other person, so that it's not just one sided. I need to take care of all the responsibilities. So I think that it comes with more responsibility. Isolation comes with more responsibility. It comes with more awareness. It comes with more power. It comes with more strength. And that strength can kind of push you away because you can't hold things in the same way anymore. You crush a butterfly on accident. So I think that there's a way that you can look at it as weakness, but I think there's also a way that you can look at it as strength. You can look at it as weakness as being like, okay, well, you're isolating yourself. You're not part of the community. You're not a part of the group. And that can pull you away from things and not make you feel confident in who you are because you don't have that validation that's around you. So I think in isolation, you also like, you sit in that. You sit in anxiety. And I feel like a lot of people don't sit in that anxiety. And but just because you sit in isolation doesn't mean that you're handling it. Right. So for me, when I do handling it, and then when I'm not handling it, I think in both ways, I pull myself back so that I don't bring that energy toward other people. So I think those are the effects that happen with me, and also in a general sense.
Yeah. I think in the same way that you were saying that you gain a certain amount of strength and understanding, where you're pushing things and people away, you can also be attracting things too. Attracting other people, attracting ideas. And I think when you're in isolation, you can figure out what it is that you really need a little bit better than when you have the noise of everything else going on around you. So that's also another part that makes isolation a powerful tool, but it can also be a harmful tool if you let it be something that you like, I don't know, fall into, or I don't know, lose sight of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you struggle when you're in isolation with losing sight of?
I think I can.
Yeah.
Especially in moments where I'm trying to like pull back and think through something, or think through like something that happened, something that made me uncomfortable, and try to question it. And not just like question that thing, but question the root of it, where it comes from, what it means for me, like what it means moving forward. There's so many layers that I think I can get lost in all the layers and forget what was I searching for in the first place.
Yeah.
And with that getting lost, that can lead to like a downward spiral. But at the same time, you can also discover really exciting things that you didn't even know were going on.
Sometimes that downward spiral is the truth.
Well, sometimes a downward spiral is actually just a sideways spiral that leads you to the next thing that, like, you wouldn't have gotten to otherwise.
Yep.
So there's nuance. Yeah, there's nuance.
Yeah. Next one.
How do you know when you need to be in isolation? Like, do you have triggers? Are there things that happen that you're like, oh wait, I need some time to myself?
Oh no, I just wanna say you are remembering all these questions by heart. Shouts out. Because wasn't expecting.
Well, I wrote the questions.
You did write the questions, but I was expecting you to remember every single question.
I did not remember all of them. I had to look back at that one before. But
What was the question? One more time.
the question was, you did mess me up. What are things, how do you know when you need to be in isolation? Do you have like triggers?
Yeah.
Just like, what are the patterns for you where you're like, oh yeah, I need to spend time with myself?
Oh man, I think that for triggers, it's kind of like, when you ask a question and you don't know exactly if that question is going to lead you to the answer that you need.
Mm.
But if the question was going to lead you to the answer that you need, then you would be asking the right question. More so like, how can I put this? You're like, oh, do I need to go get some apples? Right? But there's no immediate need for apples, right? So your question just ends up being kind of no, like, yeah, I guess you could get some apples. I guess this would be important. But if the question was, okay, well, I'm hungry right now. I really want to eat something. And your question goes, okay, well, I don't know. Dang, I lost it.
Triggers. We're thinking
triggers.
About triggers.
Yeah,
How do you
triggers.
know when you need to
I was trying to explain a trigger for me. So one of the triggers could be I'm asking a question that I need answers to, right? And I'm not getting that answer. And normally it comes like this. Like the answer will come or I'll be like, this is the answer that I need, for sure, right? When I start having doubt that that's the answer that I need, right? That probably isn't the question that I'm looking for, right? And I think that triggers me into isolation. The trigger is like, I'm asking a question or I'm getting an answer that I'm not necessarily sure that I should be asking or that I necessarily need, right? And that can tunnel into me going into question after question after question after question. And I can't do that within my immediate environment with everything else that's going on. Or I have to source for answer. Is it something I need to be looking up? Or is it something that I need to just be doing? Yeah. Right? And so it's just kind of finding, if I don't have, usually internally I can come up with whatever it is that I need on the spot. But sometimes that doesn't happen because I haven't lived enough experiences. I haven't known what it is I need to know. So I have to pull myself away in order for me to understand what it is I need to understand. So, that's one of my triggers. Another one of my triggers for isolation is when I'm just overstimulated, right? But that comes from the question answers. If I'm overstimulated, it's just because of the fact that I'm expecting something. And I'm expecting something that's not happening. And it's not happening on a continuous basis. Right. That means I'm asking the wrong questions inside that moment. Right. I'm paying attention to the wrong things inside that moment, looking for the wrong answers, right? And so I need to pull myself back, separate those expectations and actually have a realistic or a more imaginative view of what could possibly happen. So I think that those are my triggers to isolate.
Do you have particular topics that usually trigger a lot of questions for you?
I think social situations. When somebody's I struggle a lot with like seeing uncomfortability or thinking about people being uncomfortable. So I think that in a lot of social situations where I can't tell what other person's thinking and I can't curate the right type of environment or expectation for the other person to understand where it is that I'm coming from, right? I can try my best to, but that doesn't mean that what I'm telling you, you're going to understand it, you're going to get it. And if I show this to you, if I try to emote it to you, that you're going to understand it, that you're going to get it.
Right.
So I think that that puts me into a spiral, and I start to feel like I can't, I'm not communicating the way that I should be. So I need to pull back, really understand why it is that I'm struggling, and get into a more favorable way of communication or communicating this idea. Social situations can do that. Business situations where I don't have enough information, I need more answers. Especially with going with TikTok and doing content creation, like you try to trust these algorithms, but then you're also trying to do your best. So you have to take your mind outside of algorithm and put your mind inside. Like, this is a challenge for me, regardless of what the situation is. Like, this is my luxury. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what I need to do in order to do it. So I need to frame my understanding as getting better. But sometimes you can switch and go back and forth. So on trying to best myself in situations that are out of my control, those things can send me into spirals too. So I think those are my triggers. So, and those are some of the situations. What are your triggers for isolation?
I think mostly when I feel uncomfortable, and maybe in the moment, I don't really know why I feel uncomfortable, but I feel uncomfortable and I kind of freeze up or I avoid. And like lately, now that I'm thinking about isolation, now I'm thinking about spending time with myself, I use that as an opportunity to be like, okay, well, what was making me uncomfortable here? Why did I feel this way? Like, what are the deeper things going on here that are just, causing me to not have great feelings? And I think like that process of like pausing, whether that's in the moment, whether that's after the moment, like just going back to check in with myself, find out what's going on, what was going on, like how am I feeling now? All of that is really important, because otherwise I just gloss over it. It goes into the vault, doesn't come out again. And so, yeah, I just thought of this Adventure Time episode that I was watching the other day. Yeah. The Vault episode. Do you remember that episode? Yeah. Where Finn has a vault in his head. Egress?
No, not that episode.
No, it's the episode where he sees his past life.
His past life and the ghost.
The ghost. Yeah. Which was really nice. So when I just said the vault, I just thought of that episode. I have nothing more insightful to say. Okay. Just to add that little slip in there.
You asked me when your triggers, but you also asked me the question that was.
My question was. Oh, how do you know when to self-isolate?
Yeah, well, how do you know when to self-isolate?
Yeah, I would say those feelings of discomfort.
Yeah. What are the types of situations?
Usually social situations. Like when I'm talking to somebody and like I want to say something, but then I feel really uncomfortable saying that thing, or I had wanted to say something and then I was just like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, what made me not want to do that anymore? I would say when somebody else says something that's kind of weird that I don't totally understand, sometimes I'll ask them for more clarification, but other times I'll just be like, I don't understand. And also, it shouldn't matter what somebody else is saying. Like, I should feel good and whole in myself, whether or not, somebody is saying something that might be weird or uncomfortable or anything. So that's also a moment and an opportunity for me to be like, okay, why did that make me feel uncomfortable? Why was that weird? What was going on there? What does that connect to? And a lot of times it connects back to my traumas, my experiences childhood, my experiences with my parents, my experiences with friends, like the things that I didn't do, the things that I felt uncomfortable about, all the insecurities that I haven't dealt with, or like took a long time for me to deal with. And so just things that connect like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also say like insecurities,
Mm-hmm.
I feel uncomfortable, but I think it still comes back to the same thing I was saying before. Like
Yeah.
when I'm asking the wrong questions, seeing the wrong
Right.
things, expecting the wrong things.
Yeah. I think you bringing up expectations was a really good point too, because like I would say a lot of times when we create expectations.
There's stuff in your eyebrow.
Okay, but nobody can see that.
I can see it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Expectations. When we create expectations for ourselves, when we expect things from other people around us, when we expect things from the world, we get disappointed because, like, nothing is going to happen the way that we want it to. Nothing should happen the way that we want it to. Like, it's nice when you're like, okay, I'm gonna drive to work. I'm gonna get to work. I'm gonna do my work. I'm gonna get home. I'm gonna relax. Like, it's nice when those things happen like that, but they don't always happen like that. And that's like in a like big macro of the day, but in the individual like specific moments, in the minutes, in the seconds of things, like they don't happen the way that you think they're going to. And when you create expectation for yourself, I think it leads you to even more misery and disappointment. It can lead you to those things, which if you're then isolating in order to like resolve those feelings, you end up having to isolate a lot more because you are encountering that a lot more.
Yeah. I also think these type of expectations, as you said,
Yeah.
Like they can be realistic expectations, they can be unrealistic expectations, but they can also be like expectations that are for it to be out of your control. Like, I want this to be more than I can imagine. Or, how people say, this is going to be better than I expected. Right? So I think that expectations in and of itself isn't like it's like a poison, but
how you use it,
it can be a remedy, right? A solution for every problem.
Right.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Is there any other questions?
Those are all of our predetermined questions, but I think we should bring it back to like our namesake, Reimagineers. Thinking about isolation is a process of inner engineering, self-understanding. Now, how do we bring that into our present, into our future, so that we can reimagine, recreate the world that we live in?
Yeah. I think that for the most part, isolating is super important when you haven't isolated. If you spend too much time within community that you haven't really understood what your thoughts are just yet, even in the art process and creating different art, right? You're consuming on a daily, on a frequent basis, but it's super important for you to go back and just understand what you just digested. Funnel in what your past was so that you can be able to recreate a new future, right? Or to create a new future and to be able to truly understand what's happening inside your present moment.
Yeah. I think also on the tip of community, you can have community that like maybe you didn't choose.
Yeah.
And if you don't give yourself the time to know what you want, you can't be able to say whether or not this is the community that you even want to be a part of.
Yeah.
If you are part of a community that you want to be a part of, you also not having that time can lead to you not showing up in that community the way that you want to, supporting that community the way that you want to, pushing that community the way that you want to.
Yeah.
So I do think that the isolation is a crucial point in you being able to be who you want to be, but also who you want to be able to be in community with the people around you, with the world that you are in and the world that you want to create.
I think it goes back to also being like the idea of you're not good. If you're not good, then how can everybody else be good? If you're not good, how can you make sure everybody else is good? It's very important to make sure that you're healthy, that you're taken care of, that you're physically or mentally there to not just provide for a situation, but to provide for yourself and being able to provide for the situation at the same time. I think the analogy of your cup being overfilled, right? And you being able to pour into someone else or to pour into something else instead of it being that you're pouring what you really don't have and having yourself and not knowing when you're going to get that nourishment back. I think isolation allows you to nourish yourself, to supply yourself with the things that you need so that you can overfill, that you can pour into someone else because you've already done that work for yourself. And how are you going to be able to help someone else if you haven't helped yourself? So how can you be able to do anything for someone if you haven't learned those experiences for yourself? Or even be able to assist or support. Doesn't mean you have to come up with the whole entire solution, but be able to even provide some type of support, right? There's no support for the people who support, right? There's no support for the heroes, right? So who's the hero for the hero is what I'm trying to say. So if you don't have any heroes that are giving you the support that you need, then maybe you have to understand that it's not time for you to go search for another hero to give you that support. Maybe it's time for you to be able to understand that you as a hero need to be responsible for what's happening internally with you in order for you to be able to save everyone else or to be able to save yourself. When do you know when you need to be saved if no one's telling you that you need to be saved? That's time to isolate and to understand what you need in order to really grow and support yourself, So we know that through every single anime, right? Naruto had to go inside himself to figure out where he needed to really be. Literally Deku needed to go inside himself, like My Hero Academia, to figure out who he really wanted to be as a hero in this world. If he didn't do that inner work, if he didn't do that inner searching, if he didn't go hard, right, then he would still be Midori, right? He would still be just, I guess, a normal average person who just really didn't believe in himself. But doing that internal work, having All Might as a hero, but All Might couldn't help him through everything. He needed to go internal to find out what he needed. So.
I think also the idea of saving people is interesting because I don't necessarily think that everybody needs to be saved.
Facts.
Not everybody needs a hero.
Yeah.
But I do think that a lot of people need support.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need support figuring out who they want to be and how they want to be. But if you're not, like you're saying, I think it's just along the same lines, but just taking it out of a hero savior binary.
Yeah. I think that can be kind of
can be kind of messy.
Right.
But
challenging.
Right. If you're not doing that support work for yourself, then you can't help other people. You can't support other people the way that they need to be supported.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about how you want to support them. Everybody is different. Everybody needs different things. So you being able to understand that you yourself are different and you need different things.
Right.
That is all integral to learning how to be in community with people.
Yeah.
Be in community with yourself.
Right.
Support people. Understand people. Understand yourself.
Right. Isolation is really great for receptivity. For you to be able to understand that it's not you.
Right.
That you're not the center of the problem in the sense of that's somebody else's life and that's what they're existing. But you are responsible for how it is that you perceive things.
Right.
If you're not understanding how you perceive things, then how can you be able to support anybody else or support the community that you need to? Isolation is super important to understand what isolated thoughts that you have, right, that are creating the world that you're creating.
Yeah. And I think you touched on a really important point, which is where do your thought processes come from?
Right.
What are the things that have built you up?
Yeah.
Even the things that you're not thinking about or aware of. We have such big, large systems of oppression at play in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Patriarchy, racism, capitalism, so many things that inform every aspect of how we do things.
Yeah.
You could probably take every thing that you have around you and think about, like, how was this made? What, like, systems of oppression informed the creation of that? Like, the way I make tea with a teapot and I pour it in and I add a tea bag. Like, what is that steeped in? I think you can dig really deeply if you're looking to. And then once you know, you can be like, okay, well, do I want to keep doing things this way?
Right.
Or is there something else I can do? How can I do this in a way that makes me feel better, makes me feel respected, makes me feel like I'm respecting everybody else too? Allows me to be the kind of person that I want to be in this world.
Right. It doesn't always have to deal with action. Right. You know, it even just being well informed can give you the information that you need in order to keep doing what you're doing in the same exact way, or to do it in such a way that's even more powerful for you. You know?
Yeah.
So I definitely get that.
Right. And I was on Threads earlier, and there were people that were responding to calls to boycott Black Friday and stuff, and other people responding and being like, yeah, you could boycott Black Friday, or you could boycott the whole economy if you wanted to, but that's being able to even say that, I think, comes from a place of privilege. But then even more than that, like, we don't have to come from an all or nothing standpoint. We can come from just a more informed understanding of things.
Yeah.
Like, maybe instead of spending Black Friday at Walmart and Amazon and Apple, you can, like, focus on like businesses that are locally owned, that are women owned, that have like POC missions, things like that, you know, that like thrift stores that like directly help certain communities or things like that. Like, you know, I think being able to isolate gives you the space to think about all these other things and then make decisions based off of who you want to be in this world.
Yeah.
Not just like what you were born into, who your parents are, where you grew up. Like, none of that has to be the end all be all. It gives you the space to figure out what you want out of this world.
Right. I think that like Black Friday came from something, right?
Right.
So the same thing of like not using Black Friday as the place to do what Black Friday entails, but to think about like what are different alternatives that we can do in the sense of going, okay, should we make another day for another thing, right? Should we not necessarily focus on Black Friday being the biggest thing, but maybe literally, I don't know, very deep Tuesdays, you know?
There's a Giving Tuesdays.
Giving Tuesdays.
Which is a thing already,
right,
where you donate to like institutions and stuff that or nonprofits and things. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So redirecting it, not necessarily towards, oh, let's just boycott, but let's see what we can pour more into, right? These thoughts will always exist, but what thoughts are worth pouring more into?
Yeah.
You know, is stopping and ceasing Black Friday like the most informative way to be able to do things? Or is it creating a channel, like you said, for more storefronts or different types of places for local businesses supporting communities that are not being supported?
Right.
Like, where else can you pour that energy? I think coming things to complete halt would be great if we could do that. But I think that we live in a perpetual world that's always moving, always dynamic, and always changing. That to put a stop to something is more so putting energy into something else.
Right. Because even if one thing stops, it opens up a whole new world of problems but also possibilities.
Yeah.
So
I think there's always being fluid with change,
Yeah.
right? And in order to be fluid with change, you have to understand where you are isolated, right? Where your thoughts are, what you're doing, how you're moving.
Because if you don't, like, you could easily agree to something that you did not realize what that meant. Right. And
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. And something that you're not comfortable with, that you don't want to be happening, but it's happening, and you agreed to it, you supported it because you didn't realize. And it's okay to not realize, but you don't even have to be in that situation at all if you're spending time with yourself and knowing who you are, who you want to be, all that.
What you think about, what you have trouble with, like, I know that for some people, they don't have voices in their heads, right? Or they can just listen to it and talk back and have an actual dialogue and conversation.
How does your brain work? How does your brain work?
Yeah.
That's so important to being able to figure all of this out.
Right. How do you think? How do you imagine? How do you create the life that you live in? Are you aware of everything that you do consciously to be able to understand what needs to be done in order to live the life, or what that doesn't need to be done, or, you know, just whatever that needs attention, you know, to be able to create the world that you want to live. So I think that's pretty much it's everything.
Yeah.
Right? You have anything more you want to add?
No, I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. First episode. This was what is it? Reimagineers? Yeah. We just made literally yesterday came up with the idea to start this channel, to start this, because I'm focused in self-awareness and she's focused in reimagination, and I think that it's very powerful. We speak and we talk and we communicate and we come up with so many different ideas and so many different situations that open up 2 different perspectives, 3 different, 6, 7, 18 different perspectives that I wasn't thinking about because I'm not in your head and I don't know how you see the world. But we were able to get to a certain level of communication where we can be able to share each other's world very easily and navigate and very easily understand what's powerful for each of us to be able to contribute. So I think that these conversations and also what it is that we've learned in our experiences can super help people who are in close proximity to our type of relationship in their world, you know, or want to be able to have those types of relationships and don't even have like something to look at to see if they can have those relationships and what it could possibly be like, you know. I think everything can be solved by good communication, you know, and good understanding and good self-awareness and good isolation, but also good receptivity and good, what do you call that?
Good vibes.
Inclusivity.
Oh.
And good vibes. So I think all these things are really great. This was a really great first episode. Mm-hmm. Thank you for
sticking around.
Sticking around and kicking it with us.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this is, but
I think we're going on 40 minutes?
40 minutes?
40 minutes?
That's a good episode.
That's a solid episode.
Also,
maybe even 50.
Shouts out to the hoes.
Oh. For the Healthy Hoes.
For the Healthy Hoes.
Which is another channel that we stumbled upon yesterday after we talked about what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they gave us a format that was like, that made us be like, oh, this is possible.
Yeah, this is cool.
We can do something like this.
Right. It was first an idea that we thought, okay, I haven't seen anybody on TikTok or anybody on Instagram that have 2 people having conversations, not in a, you know, over the table interviewee type of format. I didn't want that for this. And I literally was just scrolling on Instagram and I don't know, I just click, and then they showed up. Don't you know how they say they're listening? That's just, they probably were listening and they were just like, hey, let me just put him in this direction. But something dope happened from that. Something dope. Something dope.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Something dope happened.
Yeah. And we were able to see a really cool creative idea for being able to do this.
Yeah. And the inspiration for this episode topic comes from their most recent video. I think it was published November 5th.
Yeah.
So definitely check out their stuff because they have really cool content. Really artful.
Yeah. Hopefully we can collaborate one day on a really dope tip.
That would be fun.
Great conversations. Yeah. So thank you again. This is Reimagineers. And peace. I'm Quay.
And I'm Cass.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, friends. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye. Bye. I gotta get up to go turn this off, actually. So, bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, my legs are achy.